Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Wishland from Lost Games. Wishland is a 1 to 4 player worker placement game of building out your amusement park as you collect sets of cards and try to come up with the most efficient scoring optimization in this game across 7 rounds of play. This is the second edition I have over here. There's actually a third edition and expansion currently on Kickstarter. I'll link to that down below, but this, like I said already, is a worker placement game. You're going to be playing the game across 7 full rounds of play, and in each of those 7 rounds you're going to have 4 turns, and in this game you're going to be placing workers out to gather cards in order to build up your tableau as you play. You're going to take a worker, place it down in a spot, pay the monetary cost of any card as you can see in the left hand corner, and then the next player who's going in that spot, next player is going to have to place 2 workers in that spot because there's already a worker there. And then if you want to return there, you'd have to place 3 workers because you always place 1 worker plus the number of stacks already present. Now the thing is, when you play this game, on your turn you are either placing out a worker, or you're alternatively worker or stack of workers, or alternatively you are recalling all your workers. So if I go ahead and recall all my workers right now as my next action, the next player only has to place 2 workers because there's down to 1 worker stack left. That's the push and pull of the game. You place workers, pull back workers, as you try to figure out how to build up your tableau in a variety of ways. You see, there's a few tracks going on in the game and multiple ways of scoring points, but you're going to be messing primarily with these decks of cards. You're going to have your rides up here. These are important because your rides, combined with these purple park cards over here, determine how many cards you can have of the other sets. You can only have blue, red, green, and black cards equal to your yellows plus your purples, so you need to make sure you're gathering those as you play in order to ensure that you can actually get everything else. An amusement park, after all, is not much of an amusement park if all you have are restaurants and restaurants and hotels and no rides. It's not that much of an amusement park. And so you're trying to make sure you get your hands on those, and also those cards are worth points as you go through the game. These are your primary source of a chunk of points, although not by any means the only way to score points. You see over here, that card is going to cost you 10, it's going to give you 5 points, and it's going to give you that icon as well, which is relevant for your mascots down here. You see, as you go through the game, you're going to be gathering mascots, and mascots are going to give you points based on having certain icons. This mascot wants you to have the various camera icons in your park, and so if you gather enough of those, you're going to score extra points, and so you want to make sure to gather those mascots in the game. That said, you kind of want to gather everything in the game, so you're going to want to be mindful of that as you play. You're going to have your actors in the game, which are going to give you a bunch of symbols, primarily your happiness, visitor, and workers track. You see, there's a bunch of things going on in the game, but your happiness track will be a way you get points and unlock a scoring multiplier for having 5 cards of each color. Your visitors tracks will give you money as you go, but will also be giving you, for every income you have at the end of the game, you're going to be getting divide your total income by 5 to get additional points. This is a good time to mention that some of the aspects of the game over here have been adjusted for the 3rd edition, some small tweaks to the various tracks, as well as some of the iconography and different things going on over here. Mostly the same game, but small streamlined differences from the 2nd edition to the 3rd edition of the game before we even talk about the expansion, which we are not doing in this review. But past that, so those are going to be the visitors. Visitors will cost you money, give you a symbol, and then give you a bunch of either, your happiness track, your suitcase track, which are your visitors, or alternatively your workers, which is how you get more workers in the game, which will help you place out more before having to do recall turns. Because after all, every single round you only have 4 actions, and you don't start the next round by recalling all your workers, and you don't end the round by recalling workers. You're constantly being mindful as you move from round to round, trying to be on top of the workers and trying to place and pull back workers at the ideal times, being mindful of where other players have their workers on the board. Over here, the red cards are going to be recurring income from some of the cards, but then also giving you loans in the game, which will cost you 0 money. It'll give you a loan of 4 money, but you'll lose a point at the end of the game. These loans can give you a bit of a leg up to give you that additional revenue, because you normally have 5 revenue every round, and it's not always enough to buy some of these expensive 10 cost cards, and so a one-time loan can be helpful, but you will pay for it at the end of the game. Over here we have these hotels, which give you a ton of effects. There's going to be like 20 plus hotels in the game, more than 20, like 24, 25 hotels in the game, each of them giving you a unique effect. Every single hotel is different in terms of the way it gives you scoring, and it might give you a chunk of 6 points over here, alternatively give you extra scoring just depending on what requirements you've gotten throughout the game, or perhaps abilities, like this card that will let you pay 3 money to be able to pull back all your workers, but effectively saving you an action in the game, so it can be well worth that 3 money depending on what other combination of abilities you have. And then you have your mascots, which we talked about already. Those will give you those will always cost 3 money. They'll give you scoring benefits, but then additionally, as you play mascots, you'll also get multipliers over here. Not multipliers, you get additional rewards over here. And then lastly, there's the starting bonuses. This is a variable aspect. You do not have to play with these, but if you draft these and give players these cards, you'll have additional starting benefits in play, which is a fun little extra degree of variety as you go through the experience. Speaking of variety, you also have the ability. You're going to have these achievements in the game that, as you achieve certain milestones, 5 of each color card, 15 points, 9 workers, things like that, you'll get extra points, but you can also randomly place out different achievements so you can have a completely different configuration of what you're trying to go for in the game, keeping the experience fresh as you go through it. The last worker placement spot is this area over here. You'll get 1 money plus your choice of either happiness, a visitor, or a worker as you go through the game, and then a few other things going on in the game. So for example, over here, when you achieve enough workers, when you've completely gotten all the workers, you'll unlock an ability where you can pay extra money, you can pay extra workers in order to save money. If you contribute extra workers to cards, you can save up to 3 money at the cost of those workers, so you're trying to trade that economy of, well, money versus your workers and trying to be mindful of your action economy as you play through the game. Lastly, down here, there's going to be an endgame scoring, which is going to give you points for the number of different symbols you're going to have on your various actors in the game. And so it's another one of the many things you are trying to keep in mind as you figure out how to balance your cards, your economy, your workers, your happiness, and your visitors, all as you play through Wishland. That's the basic idea of the game. A quick recap over there. Across 7 rounds of play, with 4 actions in every single round, you're going to alternate taking actions that's going to have you placing down workers to gather various cards, placing more workers if there are other players in those locations, paying the cost of the cards, getting the bonuses, and then when you need to, pulling back your workers so you can continue and repeat the process as you build up the best amusement park, which is primarily going to be a set collection aspect of figuring out which pathways are going to give you the most money as you play through the experience. Which brings us to the review, starting off with ease of play. The rulebook on this was fairly clear. Fairly easy to go through this one. Again, it's primarily place workers, pull them back, with everything just being about, what's on the card. Then, of course, being mindful of the various tracks and how those things all enmesh. We haven't really talked about player order, but you're also going to be choosing player order benefits over here, where you can possibly go later in player order, but getting additional benefits. Again, that's another thing that's been adjusted for the 3rd edition, so you want to be mindful of the changes going on over here. But things like that going through the game. But the game is pretty easy to dive into. Plays in around is 45 to 60 minutes if you're moving through it quickly. I think the box says it's a little slower. Box is 75 minutes. I don't think it's that long, but I'm sure it can take that long if you're taking your time with it. But overall, plays fairly quickly, teaches fairly easily, and is an easy game to get up and running as you play through it. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, as I mentioned already, it is an easy game to pick up and play as you're going through this. This game's got beautiful art and production, and it's easy to go through the experience of, this is set collection. You're placing workers. If you've played a worker placement game, this is going to feel fairly familiar, while also being different enough that it is a little bit of a different puzzle because of the fact that you don't get your workers back automatically every round. You're being mindful of your action economy as you place and pull workers, and the action economy of trying to decide which card you actually want versus overpaying more workers because you need those cards that are working for your engine, but too many players are in that spot, or things cost too much money. Trying to be mindful of the different economies in play as you go through this. This game is a fairly simple set collection game with a great art, great theme, easy to dive into, and that pick up and play sequence does keep it fresh as you go through it, combined with the different areas you can focus on as you play. You can have players who will build out a ton of these Yellow Park rides going high up on the point track, but you can also have players who are really going for those endgame bonuses, who will have a ton of other things going on, whether it's the mascots or the hotels, giving you a ton of variety to the ways you can play through the experience and the ways you can try to figure out what avenues are going to bring you the points in this game. This is a game that can easily be anywhere between, 40 to 60 points by the time you get to the end of it. And where those points come from are going to vary drastically depending on the strategy you chose. If you doubled up on the right icons while having multiples of the same mascot and having possibly hotels that fed into that loop properly, you can get an endgame scoring that's worth 20, 30 points easily. Or alternatively, maybe you just really leaned into those yellow rides getting points in the game. Or you have these other tracks. If you lean into those statues properly, you can get a chunk of like 15 plus points by endgame scoring, plus of course moving up the tracks and getting all your workers out fast as you go through it. And so there are a large variety of things you can pursue, and in particular, I think the hotels give you the greatest variety from every one of the card rows in the game. Those hotels are going to give you the greatest variety in them because every single one is a unique experience, unique ability as far as how you're going to interact with the game system. That's true for these starting bonuses as well, which I highly recommend playing with them. I don't think they're overwhelming, depending on where you're coming in from a gameplay stance. If you've played other games before, I think these are easy to pick up and play and dive into, and give you again, you're going to draw two of them, pick one that works for your strategy. I don't see myself ever playing without these, and while I would recommend starting with this track, because no reason not to, as soon as you play this game even once, I'd recommend messing with some of these other symbols that will change how you encounter and engage with the game, because getting an additional 9 points of extra achievements spread between the players gives you an additional motivation for the pathway you're going to choose as you go through this game. As far as what I don't like in the game, there's not really a lot that I don't like, but this game is on the lighter side. I tend to prefer a heavier class of game, and I think overall Wishland does keep you interested and invested through the variety of the experience, and also through that difference in the worker placement mechanic, but at the end of the day, it's place workers, grab their cards, rinse and repeat, and the game doesn't give you a ton of reasons to continue diving into it, past the fact that it's easy to play, charming, accessible. Those are good reasons to dive into and play. For someone like myself, who primarily does prefer more mid-weight or heavier experiences, Wishland is on the cusp for me as far as giving, there's, again, no real complaints as far as things I didn't like. The gameplay experience was fun, is enjoyable, it gives you enough variety that there's reasons to keep coming back to it, but it's also on the lighter side, specifically for my personal taste in games. As far as I can see others not liking, on the other hand, there's a few more things there. The first thing I would say is this is a game that it is easy to play through the experience and do a lot of things and not score well. The scoring in Wishland is a little bit obfuscated. It's not immediately present, which to me I almost like, because it does add almost a layer of more complexity or depth to the experience that I find more compelling. But it is easy to play through this game, gather a bunch of cards, and then find yourself, 20, 30 points behind other players as you go through it, because you didn't really know the difference or pick up on the difference between gathering cards and doing things versus connecting those things to ways to score points in the game. The game is lighter in its execution, but a little bit more subtlety in terms of how the scoring operates, which can make you feel a drop frustrated when you feel you've been doing well the whole game and you're 20 points behind the next player as you go through it. Additionally, I'll say that the theme is fairly pasted on. The art is beautiful, the production is beautiful, gathering these cards, everything, even these little meeples as far as, your little workers with their charming little mascot presentation, all of that works great, but past that, the theme itself is fairly pasted on. You're just gathering cards. That's what this amusement park theme is. You're gathering cards, and everything else is abstracted, tying it into the experience. It doesn't really feel for me like I'm running a theme park. It feels for me like I'm collecting sets of cards that are beautiful in the presentation, and everything else is just, it's just set collection, which is not necessarily a problem, but if you're looking for more of a thematic connection to the game, to the theme, I would say there wasn't a ton of that there. I'll also say that other players can get in your way fairly easily as you go through it, especially if you're playing at a higher player count, so 3 or 4 player games. You'll find these rows clog up fairly quickly, and trying to figure out how much you can get done as you place workers down in these zones, it can get obfuscated very quickly in the game, which is, again, you're going to have a different experience if you're diving into it at 2 versus at 3 and 4. You will simply get more done at 2. There's less players in the way of your experience, versus at 3 and 4 you're going to have those additional players, which will slow down just how much you get done. I've enjoyed them at both player counts, but it is one of those things that at higher player counts, at 3 and 4 players, people will be in your way as you go through the experience, which may not be what you like. As far as final thoughts on Wishland, I've overall enjoyed this experience. My biggest critique against it is not really a critique so much as a genre aspect, This is a lighter experience. I don't have a lot of things I can say that are problems or I didn't like. I like the overall experience. It is quick, it is charming, it is beautiful, it's fun and easy to pull out. For me, it's just that depth of experience where I would say that Wishland does things. What Wishland does, it does very well with a good, appealing theme, great artwork, and an easy to dive into game. It doesn't necessarily do anything unique or special, but what it does well and it ties it all together. And so overall, this is one that I've definitely enjoyed. It's one that gives you a good experience, it gives you that art and production, it gives you that ease of diving into, but also it is on the lighter side, or lighter side plus. Again, there is definitely strategy and nuance in the experience, but it's not going to be a super heavy game, so it ultimately comes down to knowing what you're looking for. For me, this is a 3.5 out of 5. I enjoy the game, I have fun with it, I'm happy to dive into it again, but it doesn't give me it doesn't give me the highs of gaming, but that's primarily because of just what I'm looking for in a game experience. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, Unfair. If you want another theme park game with a Dropmore theme, still a lot of it is set collection, but a Dropmore theme into it, I'd say Unfair or Funfair are going to give you a little bit more in that, not really deck building, but experience of building out an amusement park with a variety of themes and decks of cards. And then secondly, a totally different game, but also leaning into the amusement park theme, also abstracted, but at least with the physical presentation, 10 Penny Parks from Thunderworks Games is going to give you another beautiful presentation with a polyomino placement as you build out and place rides into your amusement park as you go through the game experience. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.